Welcome back to the stage of history. And in the stage of history today, we're going to talk about the big love himself, everybody's favorite grappler, yours and mine truly, Astaroth. Now, outside of the spawn skin I gave him, which by the way I think turned out okay, is I kind of want to talk about how he holds up to his previous incarnations, how his new moves help or hurt him, and how they changed his old moves as well. Alright, so his returning moves. His forward B, albeit it is a lot slower than it used to be, also reaches way further now than what it previously did. Because it also lunges him forward now as well. But in exchange for not being able to, in exchange for not being faster, the range also doesn't give you the sidestep K follow-up anymore if you're that far away, but you could still get the Hades cannon, which is fine. Up close you can still get it, however you can't charge it. Yeah, but at the same time, the move is still easily his best go-to move. It's something that you have to block and respect, otherwise you will get punished all day. But speaking of returning moves, his sidestep K, the charge is much faster now. And plus the range on it is still decent. Like, it's the same as it's always been, but now you can reliably charge it every now and then. And then you can still get the Fly of the Wicked follow-up, because the Fly of the Wicked actually lunges him forward. Unlike his previous incarnations where it didn't. In his previous incarnations, the move actually kept him in place. His Flight of the Wicked, you still get the Hades cannon follow-up, but not you do not get the bomb anymore. You no longer get the jumping grab follow-up. However, they did add Berserker's old school follow-up to it, which is his built-in up or down A that will either ring out to the left or right correspondingly. And the move itself actually can cause a wall splat, but it's not like the big wall splat, because they just fall over right away, so you don't really get that much of a follow-up outside of like random bear fangs or stuff like that. But it is to note that that option is there, and while you're in Soul Charge, it doesn't really do much more other than just guarantee they can't air control out of it, but it's already asininely hard as it is, and almost impossible in my opinion to grab yourself out of it. It still does a decent chunk of change at 53, but other than that, his other moves that are also returning are his little flip-flop. Not that one, that's new. His little Titan flips, he still has both directions, where if you're far enough, it will cause a knockdown, and will also ring out to the corresponding side. His backdash B cancel is still there. The move itself is also not bad, because then you still get that follow-up as well. It's something that you have to know, because then you keep tossing it out every now and then to make your opponent freak out. And it's basically just conditioning your opponent to be like, oh, is he gonna like whiff it? Now you do that, and then you get your follow-up. The Hades cannon also returns as well, but at the same time, you no longer get that bomb follow-up unless you're in Soul Charge. You specifically have to be in Soul Charge in order to get that follow-up. Oh, excuse me, I fucked up. And it does a lot of damage. That was nearly 100 damage. That is insane. Out of all the characters having 240 health, that is huge. But that's Astaroth's gimmick, though, is that he's kind of like the Abigail of the game, where he has to put himself constantly at risk trying to plow through people with his armor, albeit it's not nearly as good as Abigail's, but that's two different games. But at the same time, if he makes the right reads, then he's going to get a lot of damage on you, and he will kill you really fast. Speaking of killing fast, his little tackle move is now also easier to perform, but now you also can use it halfway decently. And it also causes a bounce now. It did not cause that before. It used to crumble stun you all the time, but now it actually causes a ground bounce, where you get the follow-up actually launches, and then you get the back turn follow-up. Which also, that move is insane, by the way. That I don't need to explain that move. That move has been a staple to Astaroth forever. But just letting you know that the bear tackle combo is there now, and take it as you will. However, you kind of have to time it a little bit though, because otherwise you will whiff on your BK back turned, and then you'll just be sad panda. But other than that, it reaches from very far. And it does a decent chunk of change too, like 90. His Minotaur Crush is still there. It doesn't really give you anything anymore though. It doesn't do much other than it's kind of like a get off me kind of thing. I find myself using Hades Crush though, because it does effectively the same thing, but it also forces them to crumple backwards. Where at least I can still get like the charged Bear Fang follow-up to force them into a guard crush situation. And then at the same time, if they block it, they'll more likely have to guess which one of my grabs I'm doing. And then if they guess wrong, that's still a chunk of change. But if they guess correct, then we're still at square one, and then they still have to go through all that stuff eating up their guard meter, or their guard crush gauge, or whatever the hell you want to call it in this game. But other than that, that was pretty much all of his good returning moves, except for one. And that was his old school back A, now it's forward A instead. They basically flip-flop the inputs. And I guess for newer players, I guess it's a little better, but other than that, I wish it was the old school way. Just playing him for ever since I started in 3, then I went to 2, then I played 5, went back to 2, and then I played this game. But a lot of his inputs were basically the same in those games. In this one, they changed him a lot. A lot. But yeah, you still get your crouching grab follow-up. And the move is just still good, because it's a really good punish tool from very far. Very far, excuse me. Like, she was all the way over there, and I reached her. And even if you don't want to do the crouching grab follow-up, relax. We got you covered. We got bull rushes, we got the bear fangs, we also got held fly of the wicked, and it's an overall really good tool that you should be using a lot to make your opponent respect you. But other than that, let's go ahead and get to the new stuff. Alright, on to the new moves. Is that I was talking about earlier in the video that his forward B is still intact. However, now there is a built-in follow-up to it, where if it's charged or you're in soul charge, then there is a additional B after that. That it causes a ring out. He has 2 new grabs. They are 8-way run, either back AG or forward way run AG. So either forward dash in any of the directions or back dash in any of the directions. They have 1 hit of armor, so just do that. Just take that in stride. However, if they do armor through a move, they become untechable. That means that is guaranteed damage. Well, how do you tell it's untechable? Well, they, instead of that white little block right there that you just saw, it will be like a small, like little fireball you'll see, like what you see from Ivy's command grabs, the summon suffering and whatnot. But, however, the move can be stepped. It's a little weird. However, it also has a built-in grounded version as well. So that's also really good for, you know, when you condition your opponent to start crouching, and then you just get your guaranteed setups and whatnot. And then after they start to get used to that, you just go back to what you're doing before and just keep crushing them. There is another built-in thing for that grab, specifically his backdash version, that if you hold it and just not let go, it guard crushes. You can be into it, but they're already being guard crushed as it is, so that's also really just a bad time for them. And there's also a just input for it that not only guard crushes, but also does a decent change. Where the other one does 65, this does 71, and the one that's fully held, but if they're a potato and don't block it, does 85. So it's a very good tool. However, I would refrain from using it a lot, because otherwise they'll just punish you and you'll get stuffed and you'll be really upset. His other new move is BK down, where if you mash the grab after it, it bounces them up into the guaranteed grab follow-up. The move is slow, and I don't really see usage of the move outside of like gimmicky setups or just like weird wall combos, because the range on the move is crap. Like, it doesn't really move him forward really much at all, and the move is slow. It doesn't have any armor, it doesn't have invincibility or anything. Just keep it at the back of your head, and like, just in case you get those weird like corner setups and the move can randomly hit, because the move itself doesn't do terrible damage. It does decent at 65, like most of his grabs, but at the same time, it's not the greatest. So just bear that in mind. Alright, so onward to his reversal edge and to his soul charge. So his reversal edge is weird because it's very steppable like any other one, but it does have decent range. His A is very easy to block, unfortunately. However, if they don't block it, it can cause a ring out or wall splat. But the wall splat it gives you, from what I saw, is really good because it's similar to the 4-AV, where it gives you a big, massive wall splat. Where, because there's enough distance between the move and the wall, that it causes a guaranteed Fly of the Wicked follow-up. Other than that, try something else. His Reversal Edge B, probably the most well-known move that he has, but a nice little thing to know is that it can cause a guard crush, which is nice, and on top of that, the move also rings out a fairly good distance.
How could this happen?
Do take note that it does cause massive scaling if you're getting the guaranteed follow-up, but at the same time that's still like 60 damage, which is not bad at all. But other than that, move is great. It's easily beaten by K's, but whatever, that's somewhat the rock paper scissors thing going on. But at the same time, if they're trying to do A's or they're trying to guard against it, they will absolutely get eaten up alive. Like, it is definitely one of the moves you want to be using a lot, especially when you're trying to close out a round, or if your opponent's acting a fool and you catch them off guard and then they get rung up from halfway across the stage. It does bring up cross halfway across the stage. I can confirm this. But instead of being like in the middle of the stage, you have to be back a little bit because the move actually moves him like 3 bodies ahead. Because that's usually where he ends up after he does the move. So bear that in mind. But on that, his reversal edge K is interesting because it causes a guard crush all the time. So if they block it or if they guess wrong, you will always get your ground grab every time. So they're basically forced to guess over and over again until they die. His soul charge is actually really good. Like, it is insane. Like, his forward stab has a built-in A follow-up where you get that follow-up because you get the surge. However, you only get like 1 or 2 surges because all of your moves have, all your forward buttons have armor. Well, most of them. Like his forward B has armor, his bull rush has armor. His bull rush also no longer has to be charged to get the other follow-up. And on top of that, your 4-A, if you're doing the quarter circle technique, instead you get the surge instead. And it has a really good chunk of change. Like, the combo itself also does like 113 goddamn damage. Like 114 on average, that's absurd. On a counter hit poke. That is ridiculous. And it works all the way from over there too. It does a lot of damage and is definitely something you should be using a lot while you're in soul charge. Not all the time, but keep tossing it out. And because if they don't block it, it's going to get you the guaranteed knee follow-up. And then on top of that, he also gets to take away half your life, essentially, in a single combo, which is absurd. Also, his bull rush also gains armor, and if they hit you out of it, you get the charged version. It does not matter. And also the combo randomly does like 120 damage. Yeah, I love his soul charge. His soul charge is fantastic. It is definitely way better than his crappy critical edge. Speaking of, and in conclusion, compared to his previous counterparts, he is not nearly as good as his previous incarnations so far. However, I do think he has a lot of hidden potential in this game, and it's ultimately probably going to be another like month or so before you start seeing Astaroth in high level play. You won't see a lot of them. You'll see like 1 or 2 of them. But it's really just going to take someone taking the time, learning the other characters, and then learning Astaroth. Because Astaroth has to have knowledge of who he's facing prior to then just like, alright, so I have no idea who this character is, I'll do well, right? Nope. Not at all. Like, if you don't know what Taki does, then you're just going to get destroyed. Just completely obliterated. But if you faced like a lot of nightmares beforehand, then there's no way in hell you should lose the nightmare matchup nearly as bad as if you didn't. Because a lot of your tools are actually almost as good as nightmares, if not slightly better in some regard. But on that, he definitely has some challenges, but it's basically all in the mind games, really. It's all about just making your opponent guess and see if it sticks. But on that, I'll catch you guys next time, and I'll just drop a nice little combo for you in about like 10 seconds.